So, coronavirus. I knew it was going to be an issue ever since the reports started coming out of China. And ever since then, I'd go onto my Instagram, I would tell some friends, I'd be like, listen, you might want to just put a little bit of protein aside, get a few rations together, maybe get a little piece of equipment for at home, in case you can't go to the gym. I had a lot of people that listened, some people that didn't listen and said, no, it's just like the flu, it'll blow over. Well, I'm not here to say, oh, I told you so. I'm also not here to tell you what's caused it, how it's going to end up. I'm not here to tell you that I think people are going to get microchipped, or whatever other theories are out there. All I'm here to say is one thing. Use this time to better yourself. The initial shock is over. You've already been quarantined, probably, for most of you, for a little while now. Now is the time to develop a new, healthier routine, both physically, psychologically, and perhaps spiritually, whatever that means to you. And how do we go about doing that? It's hard, isn't it? Every day you're unsure what's going to happen. Well, one thing you're sure of, right? The quarantine is going to last at least until, what did they say? Easter, after Easter, something like that. So in the meantime, what should we do? I suggest you write up a perfect schedule. I had a whiteboard, I had everything written up, and I thought to myself, look, I'm not a teacher. This video is just going to be on the fly like all of my videos are. So here's what I would do. Design a schedule. Wake up at the same time each day. Make sure as soon as you wake up, you drink a liter of water, 32 ounces of water, however you measure it. Spend 10-15 minutes stretching. Then eat the same meal every day. Make sure you take your multivitamins, all that stuff. But develop a routine. This is the best time because every day is the same. We don't have weekends at the moment. Every day is a quarantine day, which means you can make every day as perfect as you want it to be. You can get up at the same time. You can go to bed at the same time. You can eat, you can work out, depending what equipment you have at home. And don't say you have nothing at home, because there's always something you can do. Build a routine. Do this today. Build a routine. Start whatever time you want to get up. Write down that number. And then next to each hour, write down what you want to be doing during that time. You probably have a lot of extra time on your hands now. Use that to develop a new skill. Learn a new subject. I don't know, maybe learn a new language. Because you have the access to the internet. You have all this free time on your hands. There is absolutely no reason why you can't use this time to do something you've been meaning to do. Look at myself. I always meant to start a YouTube channel. For years and years I talked about it. And honestly, I was always a little bit too busy. Now I've got extra time. So now that's what I'm doing. Here's my problem. A lot of you like to go from 0 to 100 and then back to 0. So either you're like, there's nothing happening, there's no threat, or it's the end of the world, I'm stashing as many guns and as much toilet paper as I possibly can. There's no middle ground. There should always be a middle ground of being prepared. You've got some stuff put aside. You've got some savings, you've got some food, you've got some protein powders. In this room, you can't quite see it, it's just out of the picture. Actually, you can see I've got some different bags of proteins and that right back there and over there. I have essential fats. Those are supplements I'm going to use anyway. Virus, no virus. Those are daily supplements, so I stocked up on them. It was the same with a home gym. I wanted to build a home gym because I wanted a place to work out when I didn't want to be around other people necessarily. So this was a good time to do it. I've seen over in England, one of my good friends, Matt, sent me this picture of a home gym setup. by a pretty famous equipment manufacturer for a ludicrous amount of money. I think it was, in dollars, it would have been probably close to $7,000. And it was like one little cable push down machine, probably that's multi-use, a few little dumbbells and a bench. An absolute ripoff. Like I told everybody before, go to Facebook Marketplace or a second-hand gym store. Like in North Carolina, I like the used gym store. Get yourself a little bit of equipment. You don't need much. But what you do need is to keep your sanity. And I have noticed by looking on my Instagram, a lot of you are starting to go downhill. And I mean that in the most loving, non-judgmental way possible. A lot of you look very, very worn out. And in a way it makes sense, because I always say the humans as a collective species, I think we are more united and together than people would like to believe. Meaning, if somebody else is stressed out near us, we feel some of that stress. Well, right now everybody's stressed out. So everybody has a high level of stress. So how do you reduce that? You can control what you can control. And that is, like my daughter said yesterday, yourself. You can control your own actions. If that means getting up at 5 a.m. every morning, going and having an ice cold shower for 10 minutes, and then starting your day with 30 minutes of meditation, then reading, excuse me, a book on a topic that you're not well versed in, good. Do it. Get outside of your comfort zone. Make the most out of this situation, because at the end of the day, we only have limited numbers of days left on Earth, no matter what. Coronavirus, no coronavirus, your death is coming. My death is coming. So each day we need to make the most out of it. And I believe that a lot of people run in negative cycles. And I know that feeling myself. It's like you get up, you already feel like you're a little bit behind, you rush to work, you maybe don't eat as well as you should, you kind of push your own exercises into the background while you're focusing on others. In a way, it's a great thing, right? Because it means you're focusing on others and helping other people, which is very important. But now it's time to focus on you. You need to focus on yourself. And every day, you can either improve or you can regress. Because how I always put it to my clients is, if you don't improve today, you've actually gone backwards. Because that's one less day you have on this planet. So if it means going out into your garage and doing 1,000 push-ups and body weight squats, stuff that normally feels a little bit silly, but it keeps you in a routine, that every morning at 10 a.m. you go out and you do this little body weight routine, then do it. Use this time to organize your life as much as you possibly can. Also use this time to spend time with your family. It sounds pretty, we already know this, Cornelius, we're in the same house together, but are you really? Are you really spending every available moment that you're given with your family doing something productive? Or are you in one room, like I am here, while the rest of your family is in another room, maybe by themselves, maybe on the phone, maybe playing a game? Make sure that you schedule in quality one-on-one time. And for fathers, that means put your phone down, put your work down, and do some things with your children or child, whichever it is, just you and them. For example, what I do, if you follow my Instagram, you see I put a lot of videos of my daughter Camilla doing different exercises. We love it. What I don't show is that every day in the evening, we go for a walk. But I leave my phone at home. Actually, I don't even take it along, because I don't want any distractions. I want that to be her and mine time. It's the time that we discuss, we talk, we just bond. And that is really, really important. This is the time now where you can improve your relationships, or you can let them fall apart. I've been hearing horror stories of like family violence. I heard some story the other day of where the father went crazy and he basically shot his whole family. Just absolute lunacy. Instead of using this time as what it is, and that is a reset button, click. You've got a brand new slate. You can do whatever you want within your own confines of your own home. And then you go to me, oh, Cornelius, we've lost our freedom. Always pains me when people say that, because if you think about how much time you spend outside of your house, how much time is that? The house is a box. You get into your car, you drive to another box. Let's say your work, that's another box. Then from your work, you drive to the gym, which is another box. Then you drive to the store, another box, and then you drive back to the house. How much freedom do you really have? I don't think it's that much. Because you are confining yourself into these little boxes already. So, okay, now you don't go to your work box and you don't go to your gym box, but now you're only in your house box. All that does, in my opinion, is free up a lot of time, because now you don't have to drive from box to box to box. You can do everything at home. Those people who say you can't get a great workout at home, have a look at some of the physiques that come out of prison. They've got the most basic equipment. Or if you YouTube some of the workouts some of those people in Africa do, they're literally lifting like cement blocks and they're bench press. You know, they're lifting tires and chains, just super DIY. A good example was Scott Stevenson on Instagram. His Instagram is Fortitude Training. He was doing some workouts with literally, like, I think he was rowing a part of a fence, and he was just like lifting all sorts of odd objects. But the point of it was to show that you don't need a gym to get a really good workout. And if you don't need a gym to get a really good workout, there is no reason that you can't stay on your fitness routine. I know it's very depressing for a lot of you that these shows have been cancelled. It's something I've dealt with myself, because several of my clients were only a few weeks out from a show. One was 3 weeks out from her pro debut. It was just cancelled, just like that, pulled away. All those months of hard work pulled away. But was it really a waste? No. Because guess what? There's going to be more shows. There's going to be more opportunities to go to work. Before you know it, we'll be back to normal. Is that normal going to be different than what it was like before? Will society be a little bit different? Of course. Society, if you look from year to year, laws are constantly changing. Society as a whole is constantly changing. If you go back 15 years ago, nobody was browsing YouTube on their phones. And now everybody does it. Now everybody is on social media, they're connecting all over the world. Back when I started using the internet, what year was it? It must have been like 96. Only some people used the internet. We had the dial-up, it was really slow, it made that noise. And then you'd go onto like a forum and it would take a long time to load each page up. And God, sometimes you were just thankful if you were actually connected to the internet, because you'd be waiting so long while it said loading, and then suddenly the page would pop up and you'd be like, oh, thankfully. Other times we would just say could not connect. So you have unlimited resources for learning. That's the internet. You have your loved ones, that's your family. And they're around now more than they ever are, assuming you're all in the same house. And if they're not in the same house, make sure you spend time not only sending messages to your family, but FaceTime them. That's the magic of modern technology. It's not quite the same, of course, as giving a physical hug, but to see somebody's face and see their reactions as you talk to them face to face, that goes a long way. It goes a long way to keeping a relationship. So, to recap, build a schedule. Repeat this schedule like it's Groundhog Day every day. And make it the perfect schedule. The first few days are gonna suck. If you include a nice cold shower every morning, which is actually a really great idea, it's really good to do ice cold showers for various reasons. But just try it. As soon as you wake up in the morning, go and have a nice cold shower. Start for like 30 seconds and build your way up to a few minutes. And just tell me after a couple of weeks if you can't feel a difference, if you don't feel physically and mentally better from doing that, because you will. So this is the time when you build your dream schedule. Every single day, every hour, every minute is dedicated to fulfilling the sole goal of creating a perfect day. And then, once humanity goes back to normal and you go back to work, assuming you're not working now, you will be in the swing of this perfect cycle. It's like when people start a diet. I say the first 2 weeks are the hardest because you're getting used to it. It's something new, eating those meals at the set times. I say if you can make it past the first 2 weeks, you're probably going to make it. First 2 weeks of a contest prep and like the last 2 weeks are always the hardest. The ones between, those are easy. They're really easy. I mean, in fact, life feels a lot less stressful when you are organized. So that brings me on to another topic, and that's anxiety. Everybody has anxiety. I have anxiety. You don't know exactly what's going to happen next, and the truth is we never know what's going to happen next. But with this virus, it's just pushed into our face that we don't know what's coming next. We don't know if we're infected. It could take up to 2 weeks to show. I might be infected right now. Maybe tonight I come down with symptoms. That creates a lot of anxiety. I've got a ton of clients who will send me messages and they say, Cornelius, I'm feeling so anxious and I'm really not feeling great in myself. And you know what I say? I say, join the club. Nobody really is feeling perfect. I have a couple of clients and they're just like machines and nothing phases them and they keep going and they keep going. But they have other issues that they have to deal with. They're just lucky that stressful situations and anxiety isn't one of them. But we all have our cross to bear. We all have our issues. We all have our ways of coping. And unfortunately, for most of us, and I really mean most of us, we have unhealthy coping mechanisms. What do I mean by that? If you come home after a long day of work and you're just like, oh, I'm just exhausted, I'm going to treat myself to a glass of wine. That glass of wine is a coping mechanism. If in the middle of the day you're feeling super stressed out, so you go and you smoke a cigarette, it's a coping mechanism. You know that. We all know that. However, if you go home and you eat a big cheeseburger and a slice of cake, that in itself is also a coping mechanism. Because food is the most powerful drug we have access to. And people never look at it like that. They never think of someone who is morbidly obese as a drug addict. They go, oh no, we need to go to medical. And sometimes someone does have a medical condition, and if they do, then they need to get that medical condition addressed. I mean, if your hormones are out of whack, they need to be fixed. And if you need a good place to get that done, Frontline Alternative, I've mentioned them on my Instagram before. They're very good, and they'll do it all online. They'll get you set up. But the reality is most of us are not hormone deficient. Most of us are just using food as a drug. And that's why I've made those comments yesterday about cheat meals and treating yourself like I'm going to do this exercise to earn this food. That's like saying, I'm going to work all day long. I'm going to work really hard. And then in the evening, I'm going to give myself a shot of heroin. You go to yourself, what are you talking about? It's nothing the same. It's the exact same. You are rewarding yourself with a drug to help cope with your stress. There are many other good methods of dealing with stress. Tapping is one. It's one I actually discovered myself. And at first I was a little skeptical about it. But then as I started practicing it and I started doing it daily, I was like, wow, this really works. So if you haven't looked it up, just Google or YouTube tapping, so Tapping, and then for anxiety, depression, whatever you feel. Because that's my real worry. My real worry is that people were stuck in the negative cycle, but they never had time to slow down. Now everything's come to a stop. So if you don't stop that negative cycle, what's going to happen? Depression's going to go sky high. Suicides are going to go sky high. Any kind of abuse that you may do is going to go sky high. If before you used to drink a glass of wine at night, first week of the shutdown, you might drink a glass of wine at lunch too. And then where does that go? Within a month or so, maybe you're drinking a glass of wine all day long. You're just making a negative cycle worse because you're just taking out chunks of the day that were stopping you from performing these negative actions. So now is the time to completely reset. Just start from the beginning. The first few days will suck. If you're used to eating tons of crappy food, you are going to have withdrawals. Just like if you're addicted to opiates, you're going to have a few days where you feel crappy. It's just part of it. But guess what? This is the best time for you to feel crappy. Because the expectations on you are, well, for the majority of you, are simply one thing. Stay home. So now, if you needed to detox yourself, get into bed. Stay there for a couple of days until you feel better. Then get up. Have written down your perfect schedule. And follow that perfect schedule day in, day out from there on forth. There's nothing stopping you. People are very much like machines. We create programs. Our entire life, how we view the world, it's all a form of a program. So how we react to one person, how we react to another person, these are all parts of a program that we have developed in our own minds over our lifetime of experiences. Negative experiences as a child or as an adult. That's why you'll see some of people are much more panicky about getting weapons together. Even though there is no sign that society is going to fall apart, there are people who are hoarding enormous amounts of weapons, thinking that society is going to fall apart. There's absolutely no sign of that. If anything, society is probably going to get stricter and, in a way, safer. I mean, I have never seen as many police cars around as I have the last few days. I'll tell you that for a fact. So, if you're wondering, I like to chew a little bit of nicotine gum while I do these. Nicotine itself is actually it's a nootropic. Helps you focus on one thing at a time. That's why the chain smokers constantly smoke. Because the effects of nicotine last, I think it's about 15 minutes, and then they wear off. So if you think about it, you're stressed all day long, you've got 1,000 thoughts going through your head. You take some nicotine, it allows you to focus on one thing for a little while. And that's where the stress relief comes in. But there are other ways of coping with it, such as the tapping, such as meditation. There are actually even some apps, some technology that you can use to help with meditation. How crazy does that sound? But there are. There's one called Insight Timer. It's one I have on my phone. And it's great. It just kind of gives you guided meditations. It gives you the kind of background sound, gives you a set amount of time to do it. I find it highly beneficial. Maybe you will too. Maybe you won't. All I can say is, this can be the best thing that's ever happened to you. Best experience for you as an individual. I'm not talking about globally. I'm not talking about economically. I'm talking about you personally. Now is your chance to live your perfect life. Now is your chance to restart. Not only how you view the world, how you function, how you react to the world, but everything. Don't you see? This is one of the biggest blessings you could ever be given. It's like a forced mental vacation. So the worst thing you should be doing The worst thing you could be doing is looking at the news and worrying about the fact that the values of the dollar is going down and house values are going down. Wealth, physical possessions, ownership of possessions, it's all an illusion to start with. And not to make myself sound like out there or anything like that, but it's true. We never truly own anything beside our own thoughts and our own actions. So why don't you make the most out of it? If you like my video, please hit subscribe. I know it's a little different to some of my other videos, but it's something I was thinking about. Thank you.